Okay, let's go.
Hi everybody. In Chapter 7 of our textbook, The Basics of American Government, Congress is considered bicameral, with the House of Representatives having 435 members based on population serving 2-year terms, and the Senate with 100 members, 2 per state, serving 6-year terms. This design balances representation across all regions. The chapter highlights leadership roles like the Speaker of the House, who sets the legislative agenda, and the Senate Majority Leader, who guides Senate proceedings. Committees are the backbone where bills are drafted, debated, and refined, ensuring detailed lawmaking. This structure aims to reflect the diverse needs of the American people. But like we talked about in class, the House, since their terms were only 2 years, it's more of a constant campaign, and they also have smaller regions, so they really know what to do and how to target their voters, because they know what their voters want. And unlike the Senate, where the Senate is a 6-year term, so it's going to be more slower, almost like a turtle, because they're taking their time. They don't need to start the campaign as soon as they get elected, because they have plenty of time, unlike the House. Now, in the article by Roll called One Plan to Modernize Congress, a co-working space, it describes a new staff collaboration space in the Cannon House office building. It features couches to encourage bipartisan interaction. Rep. Stephanie Bice, head of the House Administration Modernization Subcommittee, sees this as a step to improve Congress's function, addressing the isolation staff often face in polarized environments. The article notes this stems from over 200 modernization recommendations, with projects like the Deconflict app and Flag Track tool tackling schedule and constituent service issues. This article also reveals challenges like only 15% of Americans approve of Congress, and retiring Representative Mark Green calls it broken beyond repair. With 39 outgoing members not transferring casework, representation gaps emerge. Yet, Representative Derek Kilmer, the ranking member, emphasizes ongoing efforts to strengthen the institution, suggesting potential for improvement. And this mix of structure and modernization efforts sets up our debate. Is Congress truly representative, or does it fall short? And now let's hear it from our debaters.
Hi, my name is Maxton Williams.
I'm Joey LeBeau.
And we are arguing as to why the U.S. Congress does not actually represent the U.S. population. In fact, it underrepresents the lower and middle class groups while skewing towards the wealthy and the elite.
All right, so congressmen are not average Americans. They tend to be whiter, wealthier, and have a higher education than most Americans do. Most members of Congress have backgrounds in business and politics, and they have no connection to lower and middle class groups. So a congressman is less likely to understand the struggles of the standard American. And congressmen are also more likely to favor legislation that benefits the upper class, like them, instead of average Americans. Since so many congressmen are now embedded into elite social networks through groups like corporate or donor groups, their policies often favor their interests. They're also often subject to lobbying and bribery that is almost always coming from these wealthy and elite sources, which will further disproportionately skew which bills get focused on.
Right, and as we know, these members of Congress they disproportionately come from non-marginalized, higher education, wealthier backgrounds. And that matters because most ordinary citizens fall into at least one category of low income, low education, or marginalization. They don't have the same ability to run a campaign. It's this name recognition, fundraising, networks, institutional support. All of these are just barriers to entry that filter out large segments of American society and politics. Especially in the past few decades, though, Congress has become much more diverse, but that doesn't really matter when the core problem of lack of representation of the actual U.S. population still doesn't match. Now, gerrymandering, the redrawing of district lines to intentionally misalign with these demographics of a region, this only inflames the problem further, making everything worse. And as supported by our textbook, donors and political funding organizations like interest groups and super PACs help aid the continual negligence towards the actual issues faced by a member's district. Instead of focusing on these issues that drive median voter participation, many Congress members have one goal: its name recognition. Also known, likely, as the incumbency advantage, This drive of name recognition in practice with large interest groups and donors deters members from shifting their policy according to the district they represent, or their actual U.S. population they're supposed to represent. Unfortunately, many in the U.S. population go for what they see as the name represents, what their political side represents. This leads to representatives having a clear goal simply to get reelected. It's not necessarily to serve their constituents faithfully and honorably, it's to get reelected. And if they're not serving their constituents, they are not representative of the U.S. population.
And the modernization efforts that the roll call article discussed, like co-working spaces and scheduling apps, these are really just like surface level fixes that don't actually achieve anything. Like, the article describes a staff collaboration space as a safe space for people from opposing political sides to come together, which would help like lessen the skew of opinion brought by isolation. But this really does nothing to change who actually holds power or whose policies are in charge. And these small changes are really only beneficial to like insiders in Congress. Workers at Congress are going to gain like a marginal benefit from having like a couch to sit on, but it doesn't directly support Americans at all. Like, these enhancements don't shift which constituents get priority or whose cases are escalated. They only marginally streamline like internal workflows.
Exactly. I don't mean to interrupt you, but adding a couch to where Congress members can agree and not argue as much, that's great for them. But for when their actual job is, that doesn't really help us. Even if it's bipartisan, it doesn't help us.
Yeah. These changes do nothing to curb the influence of wealthy donors, PACs, and lobbyists. Like, the real way to control representation is with campaign funds, redistricting, and media exposure.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ethan Love, and I'm talking about the representation in Congress. When we talk about how Congress represents the people, two important ideas come up: the models of representation and the roles of constituency service. The models are ways of thinking about how members of Congress should act. In the delegate model, representatives vote the way their constituents want, even if they personally disagree. In the trustee model, members rely on their own judgment and experience, believing they were elected to make tough choices in the nation's best interest. Most members of Congress follow the political model, which blends the two, sometimes acting as delegates, other times as trustees, depending on the issue and political pressures they face. Another key of representation is the constituency service. Beyond making laws, members of Congress help people directly by assisting with Social Security, veterans benefits, or immigration cases. They also secure federal funding for local projects like roads, schools, or disaster relief, and they hold town halls or respond to calls and letters. These efforts make representation more personal, showing constituents that their elected officials are working for them and not only in Washington. So while Congress was built to reflect the will of the people through both the House and the Senate, the model representatives follow and the services they provide show that representation in practice is more than just voting on laws. It's about staying connected to the people they serve.
My name's Charlie Brown, and I will be representing Congress. In the bicameral U.S. Congress, the House of Representatives and the Senate represent the people through different structures designed through the creation of the Constitution. However, modern concerns about gerrymandering and unrepresentation based on race, gender, and income continue to challenge how effectively Congress fulfills this function. The representation of the House of Representatives is: the House was created by the legislative body closest to the people, with representation based on the state's population. There's 435 voting members that are divided among the 50 states based on population as determined by the U.S. Census every 10 years. For example, a small state like Delaware only has one representative, while California has 53. The congressional districts, which is each representative serves a specific congressional district within their state, which on average includes about 765,000 people. And there's frequent elections too, so members of the House are elected for 2-year terms, providing citizens with regular opportunities to hold their representatives accountable and influence the legislative agenda. It's raining. Direct election. The Constitution originally required representatives to be directly elected by the people, strengthening their accountability. Now we're going to talk about the Senate. The Senate was designed to balance the power of the larger states by giving each state equal representation, regardless of population. Some equal representation is every state sends 2 senators to Washington, D.C., for a total of 100 senators. There's statewide elections where senators represent the entire state and are elected by a statewide vote. There's staggered and longer terms where senators serve 6-year terms that are staggered so that roughly 1/3 of the Senate is up for re-election every 2 years. This longer term provides more stability than the House and was intended to make senators less vulnerable to temporary shifts in public opinion. The direct election is that the 17th Amendment, ratified in 1913, changed the election process to allow the direct popular election of senators, rather than the election by state legislators.
Okay, love you guys. Don't forget to smile.